Welcome back to the MOOC course titled Corporate Social Responsibility. My name is Aradhana Malik and I'm helping you with this course, and I teach at the Indian Institute of Technology in Kharagpur, West Bengal, India. So we have just started with what corporate social responsibility is all about, what the title means, what this phrase means, and what it connotes. In this lecture, we are going to discuss the theories of corporate social responsibility, and we will keep touching upon the relevant theories in various sections of the course. But just to give you an idea of how this whole idea came about, and you know what really propels this whole activity of corporate social responsibility, of giving back to the society. There are various names for it. So all of these we will be discussing at some point. You know, it is corporate social initiatives is one, corporate social performance is another, corporate citizenship is another. I mean, various ways in which this whole need to give back to the society has been conceived is going to be discussed through the length and breadth of this course. So today we'll talk about, in this lecture, we'll talk about the theories of corporate social responsibility. The first theory that we'll talk about is legitimacy theory, which states that the society gives organizations their resources, so the organizations are expected to fulfill the expectations of the society this functions in, or of the society they function in. Now, what does this mean? You know, we have discussed this. We were talking about the iron law, and in the previous lecture. So we take from the society, we take from the environment. We, by virtue of having an just having an organization, an office in a place, we are affecting the environment around it. The physical environment is affected, the social environment is affected, the ecological environment is affected. So the political environment affects the organization and is in turn affected by it. So all of these environments are giving the organization the stability it needs. They are giving the organization the place it has in the corporate milieu, and the organization is making a profit out of it. When we are talking about a corporation, we are essentially talking about an organization that makes profits. So we are talking about organizations that are generating income from the resources they have, and because they are in an environment, in a milieu, they are expected to give back to that milieu. So legitimacy theory states that since the organizations are taking from the society, from the environment, they are expected to give back to that environment. Now, organizations can only continue to exist if the society in which they are based perceives the organization to be operating to a value system that is commensurate with the society's own value system. In order to give back to the society, we need to be able to understand, when I say we, I'm talking about corporations, profit-making organizations. So we need to understand that the society that we exist in has some expectations. Our value system needs to be in line with the value system of the environment that we function in. Our value system as a profit-making organization needs to be tuned to the needs of the environment that it survives in. We may want to give back in a certain way, but the environment around us may not want it like that. So it has to be on the same wavelength, like we talk about same wavelength. So it has to be in the same vein as what the society is expecting from us, and that is what the legitimacy theory states. Okay, how do organizations legitimize their operations? They report. So they educate relevant stakeholders about their actual performance through reporting. We tell the society what we are doing. The second method is public impression management. they may change the perceptions of the relevant stakeholders about the underlying issue without changing the organization's behavior. So they explain what they are doing. I am releasing effluents into the water, I am releasing pollutants into the air. So I explain why this is not really damaging them. So I say, no, they are being processed, they are my factory is there, we will not make noise, this kind of. So I mean, I just tell them that this is required, we are generating something that is of more use to you than the harmful effects of this organization being there. Or when we say, talking about the issue of acquiring farmland to set up factories, for example. So we say, well, farmers are not really making any profit, so we can cultivate land in another place, we'll give you jobs, people in your homes will have jobs, you will have electricity because we will have access to electricity, we can pass that on to you. So we change the perceptions of the people. We say, yes, we are occupying farmland, we are destroying farmland by building a factory here, but we are giving you this. So when organizations do that, this is public impression management. This is one more way of changing changing the perceptions of the relevant stakeholders about the underlying issue. So we tell them that it's not all bad, there is something good to it also. The third method is the CSR activities and advertising. So we distract or manipulate the attention away from the issue of concern and seek to divert the attention to a favorable issue. So we say, okay, what you're talking about is not so important. We don't change the perception, we just divert the attention to something else. So we take the attention from the issue that people may be concerned about and we direct their attention to something else, and that is done in and through the activities that we do. We say, yes, we are harming you, sorry, but we'll give you something else that has absolutely no connection to the harm that we are inflicting in this place. So maybe we have acquired farmland and we say, okay, we'll build a school somewhere else. We are not giving you jobs, we're just building a school in another locality. So something like that. So it's not really commensurate, but you just direct the attention. You say, we are doing so many good things, we have this mobile hospital, we have a school, and you'll say, but what about my farmland? And we just don't pay much attention to it. So that is done through the CSR activities. We say, we're distributing free blankets, we're giving you free meals, So don't really think about the farmland that you have lost, think about the benefits you're getting in other areas. Okay. And the fourth method is seek to change external expectations about the organization's performance. So the organization itself gets into the minds of the people. The organization tries to change, tries to make the community believe that their expectations need to evolve, because the organization has come in and set up, and so it's there. So what you're expecting, let's just take the issue of the farmland, and we say, okay, well, we've set up shop here. Now, because we've set up shop here, farmland is gone. So please don't expect us to compensate you for the farmland. What has been destroyed has been destroyed. Please change your expectations. Understand that acquisition of farmland, destruction of farmland is a problem that comes with development. Development will cause the farmland to go away. You shouldn't expect that the farmland will be saved. Now, what else can we do? Start expecting something different. So that is, at least we are honest, at least we are not, we are paying our workers well, we are not engaging in any illegal activity. So all of that is the fourth strategy, or this is how organizations legitimize their operations. Okay. Limitations of this theory. One is the legitimacy gap. The dynamic nature of the expectations of the society versus organizational objectives. The expectations of the society keep changing. What the society expects from an organization is constantly changing. Now the organization has certain objectives to meet, so it becomes difficult to keep evolving the objectives of the organization in line with the changing expectations of the society. The second is legitimization threats, unexpected occurrences affecting the organization's reputations, for example, a financial threat, major accident, scandal, etc. So, there's a fire in the factory, or I mean various things, and some carelessness, one worker was careless, somebody did something, there was a scandal, there is some mistake where people are working, they will make mistakes. Only people who work make mistakes actually. People who don't work will not make mistakes. So the organization is trying to do something and somebody makes a mistake that results in major harm to the community in general, and that in turn brings down the legitimacy of the organization, and that becomes a limitation of this theory. So the theory says that we must match our activities to what the community expects from us. We are not able to live up to the community's expectations. Because of these unexpected events, our efforts to live up to the community's expectations are further thwarted. So that is one big limitation. Then vagueness regarding disclosure, that is the third big limitation here. How much, if and why the organizations should disclose what they are doing, and how much should organizations disclose, and why do organizations choose to disclose something, and why do they choose to not disclose other things. So that is one big limitation here. Okay, the next theory that we'll talk about is the stakeholder theory. Stakeholder theory, will deal with this in much greater detail in the upcoming lectures. Stakeholder theory states that the management of an organization is expected to perform its accountability towards its stakeholders by undertaking activities deemed important by its stakeholders and by reporting information. So this is building up on the legitimacy theory, which means that the organization needs to do things that are considered important by the stakeholders, by people who are being affected by the organization. Now, who are stakeholders? Stakeholders are the persons, institutions, organizations, formal and non-formal groups which are interested or can be affected or which could influence the company decisions or actions. Okay, so these are stakeholders. Stakeholders are groups of people, are people who can be affected in any way, shape or form. Now I'm using the same slides that I'd used in a previous course, so some of these slides are the same. Those of you who have taken the course called Strategic Communication for Sustainable Development would have seen the next 2 or 3 slides. So this is the same material because it's relevant here. Okay. Types of stakeholders. Based on involvement, we have 2 types of stakeholders. We have internal stakeholders who have a range of interests in different parts of the company or organization or community and its activities. So they are the insiders. External stakeholders are individuals, companies or groups outside the companies which are influenced or could influence company or organization or community decisions and activities. So they are not really insiders, but they are outside the organization, but they could influence the company and they could be influenced by the activities of the company. They are not within that same organization. So based on the level of involvement, we have 2 types of stakeholders. Then based on how they are influenced by decisions or actions, we have 3 types of stakeholders. We have primary stakeholders, who are the people or groups which are directly affected in a positive or negative way by a strategy, decision, action or a company, organization or community. These are the people who are directly getting affected. Secondary stakeholders are people or groups that are indirectly affected either positively or negatively by a company or organization or community decision or action. So through somebody, say the families of the workers, of the employees in a company are secondary stakeholders. Primary stakeholders, some company decides to change the way it works, it decides to change the method of remuneration. So in that way, the primary stakeholders here are the actual employees who are working in the organization. The secondary stakeholders are the families of these employees who are affecting because somebody from their family is directly being affected. or the community around the organization or around the physical setup of the company. Key stakeholders play an important role in the decision making process and also in its implementation, because they are involved in the company management or financing, or management and financing of the organization or community. For example, policy makers, officials, important professionals, or community personalities having a strong position or influence. These are the people who get heard. Key stakeholders are the people who have the voice, who are the face of the company, or who have the power, either political or personal power, to affect, or maybe the financial power to influence what is going on in the organization. So these are the key stakeholders. Okay. Then, based on the amount of power and influence they have, we have four types of stakeholders. We have promoters, who have both great interest in the decision and the power to help make it successful or to fail it. These are the people who can really put a cog in the wheel. Then, defenders have a vested interest and can voice their support in the community, but have little actual power to influence the decision in any way. So they are the ones who can support, they are the ones with a powerful voice. Promoters will push it forward. Defenders have a vested interest and they can voice their support in the community, but they don't really have a very much power to influence the decision in any way. Latents do not have particular interest or involvement in the decision, but they have the power to influence it greatly if they become interested. So they are just sitting on one side and watching, and but if required, they can jump in and they can affect the decision. They are the latents. And then we have the apathetics, who have very little interest, little power, and may not even know that a particular decision exists. So they are being affected, but not very much. They are on the side. They don't want to speak. They are okay with either way, with whichever way the decision goes. So they are the apathetics. So the highest level of involvement is that of the promoters. Then the defenders, who will have a voice but not very much. They can voice their concerns, but they may not have a say in the decisions. And then we have the latents, and then the apathetics. Okay. Perspectives of the stakeholder theory are, we have two types of perspectives. We have the ethical perspective, which is irrespective of the stakeholder power, all the stakeholders have the same right to be treated fairly by an organization. This is what this perspective says, that it doesn't matter how much power these stakeholders have, every stakeholder should be treated equally in the organization. Every stakeholder should be treated fairly by the organization. Managers of an organization are expected to manage the business for the benefit of all stakeholders, regardless of whether management of stakeholders leads to improved financial performance. So everybody who is getting affected should be taken care of. That is what the ethical perspective states. The limitation is it becomes very difficult to manage different and contradictory interests of stakeholders. If you really start looking after everybody, maybe your profits can get affected, and we'll have a more detailed discussion on balancing the financial and social performance of organizations at a later stage. We'll have that in this course. Now, the managerial perspective of stakeholder theory states that an organization is expected to be accountable to its economically powerful stakeholders. So the people with a voice should be heard first. The challenge is, how do you decide the priority list? How do you decide who is more important, whose voice should be heard more, whose voice should be heard less? How do you decide who is more important, who is less important, how much weight you need to give to which stakeholder? Excuse me. The next theory that we'll talk about is the institutional theory, which talks about the social acceptance of the organization. Institutional theory views organizations as operating within a social framework of norms, values, and taken for granted assumptions about what constitutes appropriate or acceptable economic behavior. So this theory says that we are operating, and we had touched briefly upon this theory in the previous lecture, And so it says that organizations exist within a social framework of norms and values and some assumptions that are taken for granted about what constitutes appropriate behavior, appropriate or acceptable economic behavior, meaning how much money we should earn, how much we should give back to the society, etc. The dimensions of institutional theory are: one is isomorphism. There are two dimensions, isomorphism and coupling. We'll talk about coupling in a minute. Isomorphism is a constraining process that forces one unit in a population to resemble other units that face the same set of environmental conditions, which means isomorphism is a process that shows or that forces people to act in socially applied to the issue of corporate social responsibility or acceptable social performance of the organization. So isomorphism is a process that forces organizations to behave the way the other organizations within the same industry or environment are behaving. So because they are within the same environmental conditions, they are expected to behave in the same way. Okay, now three types of isomorphism exist. One is coercive isomorphism. So pressure from people or and institutions that matter. People demand something. People say, do not do this. The community says, if you do this, we will take further action. That is coercive isomorphism, which means if you do not conform to what is going on, there could be serious consequences. Now again, I have heard of organizations, I've read about organizations in areas, I will not name the geopolitical region, and that may not be correct in this public forum. So I've heard of geopolitical regions in which it is considered absolutely appropriate to give money to the organizations, to the organized crime units operating within the social milieu of organizations. So it is considered absolutely okay to fund the efforts of these people. Why? Because if you don't give them the money they ask for, if they'll want to, they may kidnap high officials, they may kill them, etc. So I've heard and I've read reports about this. That is, very brutal, coercive isomorphism, because one organization succumbed to their pressure, everybody else should. Otherwise, there could be serious consequences, including but not limited to murder of people in the organization. Now that is real pressure. The other type of isomorphism is mimetic isomorphism, which is copying others' practices when one fails to do something unique on one's own. So we see what other organizations are doing, who is doing what. Instead of coming up with our own way of giving back to the society, we say, okay, we'll just copy what somebody else is doing. Say within our industry, one organization is doing this, so let's also do this for the community in general. So for example, say it's sugar factories. So all sugar factories in the region are making cardboard boxes out of their waste material and then selling their products in those same cardboard boxes, or they are setting up schools, or they are providing sugar at low prices to people who are in the community. I'm just giving you some vague examples here. So I mean, so all of these, or maybe a pharmaceutical company decides to set up a hospital, a free clinic for the disadvantaged people within its factory premises, and by one company does it, so other companies also follow suit and they start doing the same thing. So that is mimetic isomorphism. One is doing it, it's easy for us to copy the model, so let's also go ahead and do it. The third type of isomorphism is normative isomorphism, doing good just like everyone else. So the others are doing good not because they are under any kind of pressure or they are doing something to copy someone. We also feel the same way about giving back to the community. This is one very good way of giving back to the community. We are feeling the same thing for the community, so let us also do whatever others are doing, because we also feel that it's important to give back to the community. Okay, because everybody else is doing it. Okay. Now, the other dimension of institutional theory is decoupling. Decoupling is a situation in which the formal organizational structure or practice is separate and distinct from actual government, actual organizational practice. So, social and environmental disclosures help construct an image of the organization that may or may not match the real image. So, the disclose the information in such a way that there is a specific public impression is created in the minds of the community, and they feel that we are doing good. We may or may not be doing good. That is decoupling. That is another dimension of institutional theory. So we create a public image that we are very good, we are doing good, whatever is happening inside is not disclosed to the community. Okay. Now, this is a very nice figure that was proposed by Fernando and Lawrence. This figure has been reproduced with written permission of Professor Lawrence. I have an email from him to this effect. Now, very little time is left, so I'll quickly explain this. The integrated theories, legitimacy theory and institutional theory, then give rise to the stakeholder theory, and they affect these convergent predictions of organizational behavior and motivations, which is an organization seeks survivability and stability of its business. An organization seeks legitimacy of its business. So these are the needs, or these are the things that are proposed by legitimacy theory. An organization tries to be accountable to its stakeholders. That is what is proposed by the stakeholder theory. Institutional theory says an organization tries to conform to procedures and structures of other organizations which are within a particular organizational field. So these are the predictions of, or these theories say that this kind of behavior and these kinds of motivations are desirable. And then these motivations and behaviors result in the CSR practices. So legitimacy theory then translates into legitimizing the business or organization to perform accountability to the organization's stakeholders. So stakeholder theory then becomes this. Stakeholder theory, the motivations, the behaviors that are predicted by the stakeholder theory then translate into the performance of accountability to the organization's stakeholders, sometimes based on the extent of the stakeholders' power, accountability motive. And then the institutional theory says that there is conformance of procedures and structures of other organizations, and that in turn translates into conformity to norms, to social norms and beliefs. Those are largely imposed on an organization, which ultimately leads to homogeneity in organizations in the same field. So similar, that is the isomorphic motive, similar organizations are giving back to the society in the same way. Pharmaceutical companies have free clinics. Electricity companies give free electricity to, say, the essential services. So something like that. Transport companies give free tickets to the elderly, or the lesser to the severely disadvantaged groups. So that kind of thing. So organizations in one industry are doing good for the society in a similar manner, and that is the isomorphic motive. Now that is all we have time for in this lecture. We will continue with touching up on different theories as we progress in the course, but I just wanted to give you a bird's eye view of the main governing or the primary theories in the discourse of corporate social responsibility through this lecture. Thank you very much for listening.